Amanda Leitner, and welcome to Rochester Rising, where we amplify the stories of Rochester entrepreneurs. Welcome to episode 180 of the podcast today. So today we get to talk with entrepreneur and small business owner Danni Trester. She is the owner of Trester Tailor, which is a tailor shop that's located on Broadway that does a range of alterations on men's and women's clothing. This 3-year-old business opened up its store in Rochester on January 2nd, 2017. So today on the podcast, we talk with Danni about lessons learned over the past 3 years of operating her own business, how she originally got into the tailoring industry, and how her business has adapted during the COVID-19 pandemic. Also on the podcast, we talk with Danni about a brand new video tutorial series that she put out called Tailor It Yourself. This has been the culmination of 7 months of work that she used the shutdown during the coronavirus pandemic to finish and put out. And this is a way for her to share tailoring information with the community and to form another stream of income. So we chat on the podcast today about the series as well and what it felt like to create that and put it out into the community. So we also had Danni on the podcast back on episode 112 talking about Ritz Crafters, which is an indie craft show that she brought to and created in Rochester. So you can check that out as well when we sat down with Danni last year to talk about this craft show. So stay tuned for the show today where we get to hear Danni's story. Just a reminder that Rochester Rising is the storytelling arm of Collider, which is a 501c3 nonprofit based in Rochester, Minnesota, that supports Rochester entrepreneurs through events, education, space, and storytelling. We put out a new podcast every Wednesday. You can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and you can also find us on our website at rochesterrising.org and also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All right, so now on to the podcast today with Danni and Trester Tailor. Well, thanks, Danni, for being on the virtual podcast today. I guess it's virtual via Zoom. I didn't mean to say virtual, but I feel like that just automatically creeps into everything these days.
Yeah, it gets the job done.
It does. It's all encompassing. But yeah, you do quite a lot, have a lot of hats that you wear. But yeah, thanks so much for doing this today.
Well, thanks a lot. Appreciate the time.
So I wanted to start by asking you kind of what is your backstory and how did you originally get interested in tailoring?
Well, I went to school for textile and apparel design at UW-Madison. And while I was in the program there, I started working for a tailor in Madison. And it's pretty tricky to get a job in the textile industry unless you live in New York or LA or one of those bigger cities that have a lot of those jobs. I mean, you could also go work at Target, but that's specifically more apparel. So I was more focused on the textile aspect of it. So I kind of wanted to stay local, stay around in Madison. And when I graduated from school, I stayed working as a tailor. And worked for that business for about 8.5 years, and it kind of just stuck with me. After I left Madison, I got a different job as a pattern maker for a shoe company, and then I was there for over 1.5 years, and then I moved to Rochester, and again, another sort of situation where there wasn't a lot of opportunities to use my specific degree in Rochester, and starting my own tailoring shop was something that I thought about for a long time, so I figured, why not now? So it's been over 3 years now that I've had my shop here, and it's been really great.
So what I understand, you can correct me if I'm wrong, tailoring runs in your family. Is that correct?
I guess so. It's like a very long gap in between. But the first generation of Germans from our family, from Germany, came to Sheboygan, my hometown in Wisconsin. And they were tailors, specifically cutters. There's a lot of different aspects to tailoring, but they were considered master cutters, which, is what it sounds like. They cut things out, but there's a very specific and important skill set involved in that. But yeah, they had their own tailoring shop and retail space in downtown Sheboygan. And there's some artifacts in the shop here that I have from the original Trester Tailor. But there's an element to sewing and creating that spans in my family. And my grandma is very much into quilting and crocheting and making things. And she altered my sister's wedding dress. And I don't know if it stems from that German mentality of being resourceful and just being able to do things on your own. But it's fun to have that history still carried through the family. And it gives it, tailoring is an old school profession in itself. And the fact that we have that history going that far back, it makes it feel even more old school, which makes it cooler for me, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think it's super cool. It's like skill sets you grew up, around, and just kind of continuing that on with what you're doing.
Yeah, I feel lucky to have had that very specific education and offer a service in a niche market that, there's still a fair amount of people out there that do it, but they're kind of old school. They don't advertise online, or it's all word of mouth. So I feel like I have an advantage with being a younger person, that I can have the skill set and be connected to some of those people, but also the advantage of technology to market when, it's probably one of the more expensive things in business is advertising. So if you can do it yourself, that's great.
Right. Yep. If you could do it yourself, that's great. Sometimes it's worth, paying the experts if you have that ability.
Knowing how to delegate is really important, and I'm starting to learn that too. But I say that now when I took on this huge video project. I should have maybe delegated some of that. But yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those fine lines when running your own business. It's like, when is it worth your time and when is it worth like letting somebody who, it's fun to figure things out, but it's all limitation of your time and the money that your time costs to figure those things out.
Yeah, exactly. I get a lot of people that ask me about custom work, and I said I could do it, but some of those things are just so time consuming. I can't, I won't.
Yeah.
So deciding, learning what works for you and learning how to say no is a really important part of being in business.
So Trester Tailor, you're located on Broadway. But can you talk a little bit about, what is the business? What services do you offer?
Sure. Yeah. So it's on Broadway. It's right across the street from Taco Bell. Most people know where that is. But I basically offer a range of alterations on both men's and women's clothing. Basic things like hems, sewing on buttons, repairs on denim and other holes in fabrics. I do work on suits, shortening sleeves, taking in the waist and seat on pants, replacing zippers on pants and coats, and a number of other things. I do some work on social wear like bridesmaids' dresses, tuxedos, that sort of thing. The only things that I don't do bridal, and I don't do custom work like stuff from scratch, unless it's like a pillow or something simple like that. But a lot of those things are so time consuming that there's so much other work I have to do that I can't really devote the time to those things that they require. So I usually refer them on to other people that specialize in that. And there's a number of people in Rochester that do that sort of thing. So yeah, I also do some contract work for some of the men's stores in town. So that kind of helps to, not so much anymore because my business has changed a lot and I haven't had as much time to devote to that. But it's nice sometimes during the slower parts of the year to fill in some of the gaps with work that comes from the stores. So.
Mm-hmm. And you said Trester Tailor's been around for about 3 years. So why did you decide to do this to open up your own business? Why do that instead of work for someone else here in town?
Sure. Well, I moved here in August of 2016, and before I moved here, I sort of met with a number of business owners to see if they would hire me, because I had always thought about opening my own business, but I didn't want to jump straight into that. Moving here, because move town, you want to get time to get established and figure things out. So there were a couple people that I worked with, but working for someone else, especially in this field, you don't make as much money, nearly as close as you would if you did it on your own. So I was really fortunate to get hooked up with a couple of people that introduced me to some other people and made some really awesome connections. So I was really thankful for that. But I was here, a couple of months, and I was like, so we got to make a change here. So I ended up just searching on Craigslist. I would search randomly, and I found the space that I'm in currently on Broadway, and didn't intend to make a move that fast. So that was probably about December. So it was like, here's 4 months or so. Looked at it, was like, this could be perfect. So, I just decided to jump for it and go ahead with it. So yeah, beginning of January, so January 2nd, 2017 is when I opened. And I worked out of my home for in between those months. So I had some customers that came to my house, and that has its own challenges as well. It's always got to make sure things are clean and, the cat's put away and making sure things stay separate. So, it was a little bit scary to jump into it that quickly, but it was also relief because it sort of, legitimized things and allowed me to expand further than I would have, feeling a little more limited in my house. So I think it worked out really well.
You thought it was really worth the leap to go from working out of your house to working in a retail, in a shop.
Yeah. And doing some work for the stores that I work for helped to sort of keep that stable business line while I was building up my own customer base. So while it was a little bit nerve-wracking, it was like, oh, I'm going to have to pay rent every month. But shortly after, January and February is generally the slow time of year for tailoring. It's when the spring it really starts to pick up. So for those first couple months, it was nice to have it a little bit slower because you dip your toes in it, sort of figure out the routine. And then when spring hits, when prom hits, then it's like you hit the ground running, and then you're busy till November. So, for even the first year, it was just like gangbusters. So it's one of these businesses that is kind of, economy recession proof. So like no matter how things are doing, if you do your job well, you'll succeed. But it's not without a lot of work.
Yeah. So can you talk a little about, like you said, you started this out 3 years ago. The first year was like gangbusters. How did you kind of manage that first year? Did you bring, what knowledge did you bring from prior experiences into this? And what did you learn as you were going through that first year? And how did you learn, those skills to run a business?
Yeah. Oh boy. Well, I worked side by side with, I guess you could call her my mentor. Her name is Darlene Shell. She just retired, Altered States Alterations in Madison. And working side by side with her for 8.5 years, I learned a lot about the business, what works, what didn't work. She was an extremely hard worker and was really an awesome inspiration on being a business person and what you need to input into the business for it to be successful. She worked a lot of hours, and that's one thing that watching her work, I didn't want to work as crazy as she did. Like she would work like 80 hours a week sometimes, which, good for you if that's what you'd like to do. But, I kind of wanted to strike more of a healthier balance. So I learned a lot about how to work with customers and obviously, do the work. And I learned a lot from her, basically all the aspects of the business. So I kind of just applied a lot of those same principles when I transitioned to my own, but with a few tweaks. One of the biggest things that I learned, and being so busy so quickly, prior to October 2018, I was a drop-in business where anybody could come in anytime I had my hours. And it got to the point where it was just unmanageable. Sometimes I'd have a line of people out the door and I just couldn't keep up. So that's when I switched over to appointment only. So I have an online appointment system where people can go online and fill it out themselves, and it shows them the schedule so that I don't have to take the time to do that. But it still meters the work that's coming in and allows me to keep breaks in there to go to the bathroom and eat lunch. And if I need to go to the doctor or the dentist, I can take that break during the day. Because before I had to be here the whole time I was open. And having the appointment system has given me a lot of flexibility, which is awesome. So yeah, learned a lot about that, and also just standing your ground with people. Sometimes people want to pay less than what you're asking, or they want it quicker than what your usual turnaround time is. And you want to help people. You feel bad for people sometimes, but it gets to a point where you just gotta stand your ground. And then when you cave to people, then you feel bad and you're mad at yourself. And so I really learned to be polite but firm with people, and that's been really helpful for my mental health and just trying to be fair for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty challenging thing to navigate, and it takes a lot of us a really long time to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, not without, months of therapy trying to figure all that stuff out. But
customer service, it's a hard thing, and pleasing everybody, but having expectations that are manageable on like all sides.
Yeah, I would say like 50% of what I do is checking people's expectations, and it's like, that's not how this goes. And once you get people, a lot of times too, people have been going to another tailor who does things completely different, which is fine. There's a lot of way to do things, but a lot of times it's not the right way, or they cut corners, which allows them to cut costs, and I don't do things that way. So when people come in here and they're like, "Oh, why don't you just do it this?" Is like, no, I don't do that. Do it that way. And sort of, like I said, being polite but being firm and saying, if you'd like me to do this, this is how I'm going to do it. But you don't have to have me do it if you don't want to. Just learning how to be patient with people. But a lot of times you just want to like take them by the shoulders and shake them very hard and like, "What's wrong with you?" But that's part of business,
The business, navigating the relationships with everybody, right?
And some people are super great. I have a lot of regular customers that are really awesome, and they know how this is supposed to work. So when they come in, we're just like, "Hey, what's going on?" We catch up. But so, yeah, some people just have a different idea of how things are supposed to work, and trying to re-educate them is sometimes a struggle.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk about you wearing a new hat now with video producer, and you've created and launched your own Tailor It Yourself video tutorials recently. So can you talk a little bit about what these are and what need you saw for this type of education?
Yeah. So the videos, the series is called Tailor It Yourself, sort of a play on DIY, but TIY because it's tailoring. I wanted a way to share the information that I have without having to repeat myself a million times. Part of it was also a way that, in addition to using it as a way to get passive income and share this knowledge with people who want to attempt to do things on their own, it could potentially be used as a training tool for someone that maybe in the future would hire. Could use this as a way to pass that knowledge along and get them introduced to the material without having to spend the time to stop doing work in my production. But yeah, a big part of that was to be able to, because like I said, this is sort of a dying art. It's a way to share that knowledge with people, not just in Rochester, because right now I'm sort of limited to who's in this city or in this county in this specific geographic location. And the video series allows me to share with anybody that has an internet connection and can speak English. So I really just thought it would be a cool way to put what I know out there and potentially make some passive income in addition to that.
So what was the experience like recording this, creating something new? So what was that experience like to put these videos out there? And what does it feel like now that, you started this and people can consume them?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, overall the experience was a lot of highs and lows, a lot of frustrating moments where you forget, to record, or because I record this dual camera. So there's an overhead shot and then a shot on me when I'm sort of explaining things. Sometimes one of the cameras wouldn't be rolling or wouldn't have my mic plugged in, or the battery would die in the middle of recording, or there's a truck leaving Taco Bell across the street that's just like, so I have to stop what I'm doing, wait, and then going through that and editing out all those extra sounds. I'm really good at editing now. But yeah, now that it's out, I feel a little apprehensive just because I'm such a perfectionist about things that, nothing's ever perfect, but I just accept that it's okay. You can put it out there. So I'm always leery of criticism. But, without that, we don't learn and grow. So the feedback overall has been really positive and great. So I feel better about that. That first moment where you hit send or launch, you feel a little apprehensive, but it's also exciting because I put 7 months of work into this, like swearing and sweating and re-editing things and refilming things. And it feels good, relieving for, have that big first bit over with. But also exciting for what it could bring. You never know. So, yeah, it's early days yet. We'll see how it goes. I'm working on SEO optimization, so that people who I haven't directly sent it to can find out about the series. But that's a whole other ball of wax.
Yeah. So your first two that are out are small alterations and repairs and how to alter jeans, which I feel like everyone's going to be altering their jeans after quarantine. But yeah, so where can people find the videos?
Yeah, so the website is tailorityourself.com. You can also find snippets of it and links to our website. Instagram is at Tailor It Yourself. Facebook, if you search Tailor It Yourself. Or you could Facebook look for Trester Tailor, and I've sort of linked to the Tailor It Yourself page through that. But yeah, some of them are for free, and the ones that are at no charge are also up on YouTube. So you could search Tailor It Yourself through YouTube. I have a URL, but it's not a customized URL. They only let me have a generic one because I don't have many views yet. So yeah, if you Google that, you should be able to find it. There's also links to all this on the Tailor It Yourself website. There's an about page where there's a blurb about me, and there's little icons that you can click that link to all those different accounts. But yeah, other than the ones that are up on YouTube, there's also videos that have paid content. So there's maybe about 10 videos showing small alterations and repairs, how to fix holes, how to remove fuzz from a garment. That's one of the free ones. How to sew on a snap, how to replace snaps on a jacket, that sort of thing. And then the jeans category has how to do hems, how to take in the waist, how to taper the legs. And then there's a couple different ways how to do hems depending on the look that you want at the end. But each video lesson, I guess, comes with the in-depth video, a downloadable PDF with written instructions and detailed pictures. And I also have a recommended tools list, which is basically a clickable Google Doc that links to different sources where you can get the tools that I recommend. But yeah, it's kind of a package deal. And the free ones, you can also get access to the PDF and the tools list. You just have to sign up for an account through the website.
No, I think this is very cool. And I think, there's so much content out there now that it's so important to have content like yours that's like vetted and, it's made from a professional, you're getting like good content and content that you can execute on. And I love the PDF part because, it's nice to have something in your hand that you can kind of follow along too.
Exactly. So everybody learns in a different way. So, you can see the operation in action with the video, and you're just thinking about it. And I don't know if that makes sense to me, but if you can read the written instructions and sort of marinate on that a little bit, sometimes it becomes a little bit clear on what you're supposed to do. Because I've been doing this for over 13 years, so for me, as this is like second nature, I could do it in my sleep. But there's so many people that aren't inclined to sew or do this sort of thing. Like my boyfriend, I had him read the PDFs and edit them just for grammar. And some of them, he's like, I don't know, this seems weird. He's like, maybe I need to watch the video, because not everybody is inclined to think that way. So I hope with the video and the PDF in combination that it becomes clear enough what people need to do. But sometimes it just needs practice.
That's a good point, though, that sometimes like when you're not that had to be one of the more tricky parts, is when you are in it every day. It's kind of hard to take that step back and explain things like if you were doing this the first time.
Yeah, a lot of this process, and I started out by writing scripts and sort of starting from the very beginning, like, all right, well, how do I make this the most simplistic way to do this, but not making it so long that it takes forever. I had to think back a lot to when I first started tailoring and what were the challenges for me and the things that I didn't understand. Because it's easy to people still, don't know how to sew on a button. And for me, it's like, oh, come on, that's like the easiest thing. But that's the video that people have commented on the most so far. It's like, I didn't even know how to sew on a button. I was like, all right, well, maybe you could try something a little more advanced. But yeah, trying to just like get back to basics so that, you can maintain your wardrobe on your own. But it's not for everyone. There's still some people out there that are not going to take the time to do it. It's like, I don't care. I'm going to pay a professional to do it right. But some people want to try things on their own. They want to save on cost, or they just want the aspect of having done it themselves, or learning to do it because maybe they want to start a business doing that. Who knows? There's kind of a mix of an audience there, but I felt that getting the information out there was the best way to start and figure out what I need to do. It's kind of an experiment.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you said in the beginning, tailoring is something that's really recession proof. And I feel like now maybe we're moving away from like this throwaway culture of like clothing that's not like high quality, and we're keeping things longer. Are you seeing that, like people coming in to get more, alterations, trying to buy higher quality and like keeping it longer? Or is that just in my head?
No, that's definitely been a trend for the last few years now. I feel like, especially within the last, 5 years, it's really sort of taken hold. People are buying things from thrift stores and having them altered. So it might be the same cost as buying a new garment, but it is something that, more environmentally friendly, that you've saved a garment from, going into a landfill, but we have it altered and then it fits you. So it might be the same price, but it's a garment that actually fits you and that you're going to wear. And I've seen people who would maybe normally buy higher end garments going through Poshmark or some of those websites that have brand name clothing that are been gently used and are still in good condition. And then they'll just sort of tweak it so that it fits them a little bit better. So they're still maintaining that sort of luxury aspect, I guess, but just trying to be a little more cost conscious and environmentally conscious. And that's kind of a cool way to do it. So
I'm into things these days. Like I read an article a few months ago about, I believe it was in Italy somewhere, that they just like unravel like clothing and then try and repurpose the threads. And like clothing just like something happens, or like you said, either goes into a landfill or someone's like pulling it apart to repurpose it. So
yeah, that's a big part of, you pointed out that I run Ritz Crafters. It's a indie craft show I started in Madison and I did a show in Rochester a year and a half ago. But a lot of people, that's big part of the revolution of Etsy and just craft in general, is that people are repurposing materials to make other things. Like one of the vendors that was at Ritz Crafters, she's called Surface Works. She takes T-shirts and sort of, because you can sort of rip the fabric, and she rips it in one long strand, which then she also, when you pull it, it makes it even smaller. And then she uses that to crochet into rugs and other little home goods. So yeah, it's besides, actually just reusing clothes and altering them to fit you or changing them and sewing them into another garment, you can use the clothes as raw materials. And I think that's a really cool way to be resourceful as well.
Yeah. So I think it would be remiss to not talk about COVID-19 in this podcast, something I don't want to talk about anymore, but I think, it's important. So we're recording this in mid-May, but can you talk about, how has COVID-19 impacted your business, from March until now. What has been happening with you?
Sure. Well, since the 27th of March, I've not been open. My shop hasn't been open for appointments. I've had a drop box I installed outside, a secure drop box for people to drop off and pick up items that don't require fitting. So things that are pre-marked and measured, like they know that their inseam is on their pants. Or I had someone drop off some baseball jackets that they wanted a bunch of patches put on, which was cool. So I've been able to do a little bit of business, but it's nowhere near what it is. April is probably my busiest month of the year with the spring wardrobe switchovers, prom, and start of wedding season. And it's maybe like a 15th of what I normally do. But it's okay. I've been fortunate that my business has been steady for over 3 years, that I have reserves and other sources that I'm able to get by. But the closure has also allowed me to basically full-time finish editing the video series. I don't know when I would have released that had the pandemic not shut down the business. Because basically from the beginning of April to last week, when I launched, I just full-time was just here working away on it. So I couldn't imagine. It would have probably been in the fall before I finally got to it, knowing that I would have been approaching my busy time. But yeah, we just got word yesterday that the stay-at-home order has been lifted. Now I think it's Stay Safe Minnesota order. So yeah, I'll be able to reopen. But I think because prom isn't happening, weddings aren't really happening as much, people are working from home, they don't need as much business attire. I think it'll be down. But just gotta roll with it and do what I can and be safe. Yeah, I've been making masks I've also been making masks during the closure, which I've been donating to OMC and anybody that's requested one. And I've been mailing them to family and friends back home in Wisconsin as well. But I will be requiring anybody that comes into the shop to be wearing a mask, which I will provide them if they don't have one. So I feel like because I have the skill set to make the masks, I should do it. But as a business decision, it's terrible because they're very time consuming and you don't make a lot of money on them. So.
Right. Yeah. I think we all need to, focus on kind of maintaining our business and making sure it survives.
Yeah.
Then, yeah. Have you felt, well, it sounds like this time was really useful to get out the videos, but have there been anything else that you kind of had to modify or innovate on during this time that you feel you might incorporate into your business model moving forward?
Well, I'll keep the Dropbox for sure, because that's been really convenient for people. People that aren't comfortable, having person-to-person contact, but sometimes they can't always get here during my hours. And obviously, not all people's business hours are convenient for everyone. I would have to live here, be open 24 hours for it to be totally convenient, which is not going to happen. So the box allows for that. And again, it's limited on what can be put in there, and you can't put long dresses or things that are real big. But yeah, it will allow people a little bit more convenience. As far as other things, I mean, this business is pretty straightforward. So I guess going forward, we'll changing my schedule a little bit to allow more room in between appointments so that I have time to clean everything. But we'll have to play that by ear. Every day things will change. So
yes, but it's a good thing that that there'll be more flexibility to operate safely now moving forward.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I'm in this weird position between salons where they have close contact with people. I have close contact with people as well, but it's not for that long. I'm working him takes like 2 minutes and then you're in and out. It's fine. So just being smart. A lot of people are not being smart. It's common sense. So just being safe and smart. And obviously people aren't if they're not comfortable coming in, I totally understand that. But I will try to be as accommodating as I can to requests that people have and do what I can.
Well, I have some final questions here as we wrap up that I've been asking everybody. So my first question for you is, what are you reading or listening to right now?
I don't really read a whole lot because I'm always doing things with my hands and moving around. But I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to too many political podcasts. So like during this time, they've all kind of repeated themselves about coronavirus and all that. So I try to cut back on that. But there's just a number of comedy podcasts where people are just chatting, just like friends hanging out. And because I work by myself in the shop, I don't really have coworkers. So I like to listen to a lot of those conversational podcasts because it makes me feel like I have coworkers. It's maybe not the most fruitful conversation and constructive. I listen to plenty of things that I learn stuff, but I find the most comforting ones are the podcasts that are conversational that I've listened to for a couple of years, and you get excited when there's a new episode out. And it's like, oh, check in my friends, see how they're doing.
Yeah, it's good to have that balance too, and that's like a huge thing. I listen to a lot of those too, and it's like, I don't know, it's kind of refreshing too that like life still goes on, people are still doing normal things.
Yeah, exactly. It's just how things are reflected in their lives as well as mine. It's like, why not so different? They're like famous comedians and stuff like that. So it's just, it's kind of cool. It keeps everybody connected a little bit.
Yeah. What's your favorite spot to be at in Rochester?
Oh, man. I should have prepared an answer. I guess it depends on the context.
Where's your favorite place to be outside since we have nice weather?
I guess my house.
I think that's fair.
That's not a good answer. Okay, I'll give you a better one. Let's see. It's just weird because everything's closed right now.
Yeah.
I can't give you a good answer right now. I'm sorry.
That is totally okay.
I've been spending so much time at home. One of the big projects we work on is fixing our deck. There's a lot of rotten boards on there. So this last 2 weeks of this downtime, I'm fixing boards and painting, and I don't know, just listening to podcasts and doing that sort of kind of mindless work is really therapeutic for me. So just being outside in general. We walk around the neighborhood a lot, which is fun. Sometimes we'll get in the car and drive to a different neighborhood. Like we went over by Pill Hill, and there's some really cool houses, and we dream about, it's like, we lived over here. This would be so cool. It's like, that also be really expensive, but it's fun to just kind of visit different neighborhoods of Rochester. And I guess I've been here a couple of years, but I still have trouble getting around sometimes. I don't know where everything is.
No, and there's a lot of places, like if you didn't have a reason to go into that neighborhood, you wouldn't be there. You'd never see it.
Yeah, and it was funny when we were over by Pill Hill, I saw one of my customers running, and I was like, hey, how's it going? I don't think he recognized me. He had sunglasses on, so I sent him an email later. He's like, I thought that was you. He's like, over here. I was like, no. I wish I did, but no, there's some really cool old houses with really interesting architecture. We like to look at different architecture. It's just like a really nerdy thing to do.
I totally get, like, being at home is like, especially during summer, I love being at home because the same thing. We finally replaced our deck because I fell through it. It's not like off the ground or anything, but like we were trying to preserve it. We painted it, and it hadn't been taken care of. And then last summer I fell through it. So we're like, well, I guess it's time to to replace it.
When you're like growing up and people tell you about life, they do not tell you how much deck maintenance is involved in adult life. It is ridiculous. Every year it's just like, come on. It's like, might as well bite the bullet and get a new deck. But by that point, we've replaced everything. So.
Yeah, this summer will be the front deck as soon as as soon as we order it, yeah, it's pretty bad. And it has like a railing. And when we first moved in 3 years ago, our friends leaned on the railing and almost went through it.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, no one tells you about the rot that will happen to your house.
Brutal.
Yeah. So my last question for you, has there been, or what is a person, organization, or resource in Rochester that you feel has been important for your journey with Trester Tailor?
I would say most recently, the Chamber of Commerce in Rochester has been really awesome. They have been, through this whole closure process, have been putting on a number of webinars to help people figure out PPP, what to do with their business. I just attended one earlier this week about steps for reopening your business and what you need to do to be safe and be responsible. And that's been a really awesome knowledge base that I wouldn't have otherwise looked into. And they're also really great at, there's supposed to be a huge construction project that's planned on Broadway that was supposed to start last year, but it's been delayed because there's been issues with the property tax assessments and all that good stuff. They have been really good at notifying people in their city council meetings and when you have to send in letters of, dispute by and that sort of thing. And they also helped me with I had a PPP application into the bank that ended up having an error on it and wasn't able to get it fixed. And they put me in contact with somebody at the SBA who was able to find somebody who could get things rolling again and get it corrected. So that's been really awesome. So they've just been a really cool resource and directing, if they don't have the answer, they know who to direct to. So yeah, I feel like they've done a cool job to this whole thing.
Well, I will end by asking you for any final thoughts and where is the best place for people to find your business?
Yeah. Well, thanks again for taking the time to give an update. I've been on the podcast before for Ritz Crackers, so it was cool to kind of catch up. And
that was over a year ago.
Yeah, a little while ago, a little bit of a different theme, but my business is Trester Tailor. You can find me at trestertailor.com. That's Trester. A lot of times people spell it OR. But it's trestertailor.com. The video tutorial series is tailorityourself.com. Both the series and my business are on Facebook, Instagram, Yelp, Google, all that good stuff.
Well, thanks for taking time to do this today, talking via Zoom because we have to right now. But yeah, I appreciated your time and conversation today.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much to Danni for being on the podcast today. And you can find more about her on her Trester Tailor website or at Tailor It Yourself. And you can find links to those in our show notes. We're always looking for suggestions of great Rochester entrepreneurs and small business owners to have on the podcast. So if you have a suggestion, let us know. Send us an email at rochesterrising@gmail.com. We're also always looking for sponsors for our podcast. So if this is a mission that your business wants to support, let us know. Again, you can send us an email at rochesterrising@gmail.com, or you can click on the sponsor link on our website. That's a wrap for us on the podcast today. Be sure you subscribe wherever you listen into your podcast content so that you never miss a story of innovation and entrepreneurship coming out of Rochester, Minnesota. We'll be here next Wednesday with a brand new story.